We wish to discuss the creative potential that's available when you allow uncertainty into your life. You may have noticed that most of humanity spends a good deal of time trying to achieve certainty about who you are, what's the best way to live, what's right and wrong, etc., or to convince others of that which you have become certain. We understand how compelling this is in the human experience, but we also know that it greatly limits what's possible for you. And as we have said many times before, what's possible is much bigger and better than you know. Let's start with a brief review of the anatomy of beliefs. When a soul incarnates, it intentionally steps down a portion of itself into a lower vibration state of being that inhabits the physical body, which includes the physical brain, which in turn houses the mind. The brain-mind mechanism contains the thoughts, emotions, and beliefs, collectively known as the ego, which in turn drives your behaviors. The ego is what gets you out of bed in the morning and enables you to navigate the world around you. It defines the world based on the stories it adopts from influential people in your life, such as your parents, teachers, and peers, as well as your own direct experience of life as you try a new thing, learn from it, and draw conclusions. These stories become beliefs once the ego decides they are true, and the ego then enjoys the comfort of having achieved certainty. Most of the ego's beliefs come pre-packaged with agreement from a host of other individuals who believe the same way. This brings quick certainty and the comfort that accompanies it. The individual thinks and feels, "I know this to be true," so she files it away under truth and doesn't have to deal with it again. Certainty then surrounds the ego like a bubble that deflects alternate points of view while allowing those that agree with what it knows. If any doubt remains, or if future circumstances cause the ego to question what it knows, it automatically consoles itself with thoughts like, "So many others believe this way, therefore it must be true." However, at times the ego wrestles with contradictions or comes across new information that makes it question its own truth. It may then seek alternate paradigms or occasionally come up with something new on its own that feels right, and then go about seeking agreement from other egos for its own point of view. When enough agreement is discovered, the ego will reach a comfortable level of certainty once again. The belief is then generously passed on to others who seek to know for certain how it is. In short, the ego abhors uncertainty. As a result, it experiences a fight or flight response to any challenge to its beliefs. Why? Because uncertainty exposes the tough questions, such as why the world exists, why you are all here, why there is apparently so much struggle in life, whether your life has an individual purpose, who or what God is, and things like this. This is why humanity wars. This is why neighbors shun neighbors. This is why you create laws to restrict how certain people choose to express themselves. It is all because your egos, individually and collectively, crave certainty. It absolutely craves certainty. Or, to state it in opposite terms, you fear uncertainty. Humanity has been living this way for a very long time. Our question is, how well is that working for you? Is it creating a safer world? A kinder world? A more just world? A world you can be proud of? If the prophets of old were to return today and say, "So, we left you with a set of instructions about how to treat yourselves and each other. How's it going?" Could you hold your heads high and say, "Doing great"? Or might you hesitate and experience a moment of uncertainty? Friends, if humanity has learned anything at this point in your evolution, it must be that you will never get everyone to agree on any particular point of view. Most of the time, you won't even achieve majority agreement, nor will you get widespread agreement about what is it you should try to agree on. Priorities will always be diverse. As long as there are people experiencing life in so many different ways, such as cultural, socioeconomic, religious, geographic, there will be tremendous disagreement about what is right and what is wrong. This is inherently part of the Earth experience. Think about it. If mass agreement were possible in such a diverse world, it would have happened by now. As your history shows, many have already tried to achieve it through the use of force, and they failed. Each time one nation tries to impose its collective truth on everyone else in the world, the effort is thwarted by others with a different collective truth. Yes, there are sometimes small successes when one nation conquers another, but they are almost always tenuous. A conquering nation may claim dominion over another's geography for some time, but rarely over the people's truth about who they are and what their priorities are. This is why borders continually change. A conquering nation will enjoy their victory for some time, but eventually their truth collapses because they never succeed in conquering the collective truth of the people. The bubble of belief is simply too strong on both sides. When this is clearly seen, there really are only two choices. Number one, keep trying to get mass agreement for your truth despite all the historical evidence that your efforts will fail. Or two, question your own certainty about what you believe to be true and whether it must be true for all. It is admittedly surprising from a non-physical point of view that so many among you still continue to choose the first option. Perhaps you have heard the expression, the definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing and expect different results. Yet that is what humanity continues to do. If more people would allow themselves to say, I believe this and I am open to the possibility that I could be wrong, massive shifts become possible. Or to make it even easier, if more people were able to say, I believe this to be true for me, but I do not need it to be true for anyone else, you would still make tremendous strides towards a more benevolent world. All that is needed to change the world in ways that work better for all of humanity is a willingness to allow uncertainty into your experience. When you embrace uncertainty, you leave the door open to infinite possibility. When you exclude points of view you don't agree with, you slam that door shut. And because God is by definition infinite, you exclude God. You are then left to create your world from your limited human point of view, which includes fear and all of its attributes, such as injustice, inequality, intolerance, and mass suffering. Now, we understand the allure of achieving and maintaining certainty. We understand how intoxicating and binding it is. We understand that to embrace anything else is to question who you are and why you exist. Your egos have worked long and hard to create a world that makes sense to you and allows you to function day to day. But we are not asking you to surrender all that you have accepted as truth. We are simply asking that you leave the door open just a crack. Continue to have your beliefs and points of view, but just allow for the possibility that there may be a larger truth available to you and that other points of view can exist alongside yours without making you wrong. The earth was never intended to be a place of winner-take-all. When you can say, I know this to be true for me and I am absolutely fine with others believing differently, you are laying the foundation for a world that serves all of humanity much better. Your personal world immediately becomes a whole lot friendlier because you will no longer feel threatened by anyone else. You will feel much more at ease because you will no longer be pushing against other people and conditions all the time. You will experience more energy in your own life because you will no longer be spending it on trying to figure out how to get that mass agreement that will never happen. Friends, do you not see that you have been pushing boulders up mountains for almost the entirety of your existence on the planet? Why would you keep doing that when every generation before you lived to see those boulders roll back down upon them? It is indeed the definition of insanity. You have become so invested in your own stories about how the world must be that you have made boulder pushing normal and acceptable. In other words, an acceptable level of pain. And you have convinced yourselves that this is what God wants, despite the fact that all of your great prophets spoke only of love, unity, faith, and service to humanity. You needn't just take our word for it, though. Trust your own feelings. They are the barometer built directly into your ego. When you feel fear, such as the fear of being wrong about anything, you know that you are pinching yourself off from your source, from God. God does not fear anyone or anything. God certainly does not desire that you feel fear. Yet you choose fear constantly and then convince yourselves that it must be what God wants. Conversely, when you feel joy, you know that you are in alignment with God, your source. So allow yourself to feel more joyful about the world and your place in it, and allow others to find their joy in ways that resonate with them, even if those ways seem completely foreign to you. Know that it is your ego who disagrees with their choices, but it is not your higher self. Your higher self knows that all choices are honored by God. Your duty is only to choose for yourself and allow others to do the same. Just open that door of uncertainty a little bit and allow for the possibility that what is true for you does not have to be true for another, no matter how correct it may feel to you. Allow it to be correct for you and not correct for somebody else, and know that by doing so, you are not depriving yourself of one single thing. In fact, it is quite the opposite. When you allow for just a trickle of uncertainty, you offer the universe an opening to surprise you with new understanding that you could not otherwise have known. Your certainty about the way things are excludes many possibilities that you would find even more desirable than what you believe to be true. This is our promise to humanity. Allow for the possibility that your truth is but one of an infinite number of possible truths, and you will make space for greater truths to be revealed. And here are some ways to get started. Keep a tally of how many times a day you utter or think a negative statement about someone else's beliefs, such as, "That's a bunch of crap," or "What were those idiots thinking?" or "I tell it like it is," or "They don't know what they're talking about," or "Can you believe what they said or did?" Number 2, if you pay attention to the news media, look at the sources you believe have the wrong point of view just for a day. Just watch them for a day. You'll quickly see that millions of people are quite certain about beliefs that are the opposite of yours. Now, do you really want to take on the task of trying to convince them that they're wrong? Do you want to live in a world where each side is openly hostile to the other? Number 3, notice how often your media and entertainment shows you doomsday scenarios, and feel the energy in your body as you do. What you will notice is the low-frequency emotion of fear, which, as we have discussed, God does not have. Do you choose to align with the vibration of those scenarios, or to the high vibration of God? And finally, when someone presents you with a point of view that opposes yours and you feel the fight or flight energy kicking in, stop, take a deep breath, drop into your heart center and say the words, "Release and receive" a few times to yourself. Release and receive. This shifts you into a more neutral energy that simply allows for the possibility that there is a greater truth to be had for both of you. We invite you to put this to the test, but if you embody only one thing from this transmission, make it the simple truth that God is love, and that therefore if you choose to align with any attribute of fear, such as anger, greed, belief in lack, or the need to be right, you are separating yourself from God. And we wish you blessings on your journey.